Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Spilling the Tea in Studio D. Man, I'm excited about today. What about you, Candy?
Yeah, super excited.
We have some very special guests today. We have Commissioner/Secretary, I'll get to that in a second, Johnny Key from the Department of Education, and we have Deputy, I think that's what your title is now?
Yeah, Deputy. Mm-hmm.
Stacy Smith, also from DESE, and we appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know you folks are very busy, but I've got to ask you this question while it's fresh on my mind. So we were looking yesterday for a commissioner's memo, and with you being secretary and not commissioner, I asked Candace yesterday, why hadn't that changed, right? Mm-hmm. And what was it we landed on? You remember?
I think you said secretary's statement.
Yeah, I
maybe.
think that makes
So
sense.
changing the whole title of the memo section.
That makes sense.
See, it's not necessary. I
That's
can
right. You
explain
can explain it.
Oh yeah, you wear
Okay,
two
yeah.
hats.
I do.
Okay.
So as of 2019, July 1, 2019, I became Secretary of Education for the Department of Education. That's the cabinet level department.
Right.
But I remain, and in the statute, the position of Commissioner of Education of the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education is still there. So I still am in that role as well. So I fill a dual role right now.
So you're Secretary,
I'm
Commissioner
Commissioner
Johnny Key, or
and Secretary,
Commissioner
so-
Secretary Johnny Key.
Yeah, so commissioner's memos, that's still valid.
It still is
Okay.
yet.
Yep,
All
And
right.
it's still for Division of Elementary and Secondary
for
Education.
the division.
Yeah.
Yep.
Spoken like a true dignitary. Okay. All right. Yeah. Just a thought. I'm a simpleton, so I was just trying to help a brother out. But we are glad that you're here. Let's kick this thing off really and truly. I want to talk to you just a little bit about, you're a little bit like me in that education was not your original trajectory, if you will, career path when you kick this off. And so tell us a little bit about how you came to be the commissioner and in that path, and would just do that for us.
Okay,
as best
yeah,
as possible.
well, and first I think Studio D, that's Studio Darren, right?
Absolutely.
definitely Studio
I just
Darren.
want to make
Absolutely,
sure that
yeah.
we got that cleared up. So yeah, it's pretty widely known that my background was in chemical engineering. That's my degree field. When I graduated, I moved to Mountain Home, got a job in the quality engineering department at Baxter Healthcare Corporation. So it was the largest manufacturer of plastic sheeting, plastic tubing, and medical devices. Worldwide company, distributed all over the world. But a few years after I was there, I got involved in politics. I ran for the House. I got to the House in 2003. And anybody who remembers the history of education in Arkansas
Right.
will remember that was the year that the Lakeview case really hit home, and the court had told the state, you have to fix this. And so I got there at the time where Jody Mahoney and Dave Bisbee and a number of those senators and representatives were really engaged in addressing the Lakeview case. Governor Huckabee was governor at the time. So I spent a lot of time listening. I wasn't on the Ed committee, but I spent a lot of time sitting in the Education committee. And then I got to the Senate, and when I got to the Senate, that's when I got on the Education committee. So thinking about how I ended up in this role, there was a lot of work on budget, a lot of work on policy.
Right.
And if you think about the department and what it does, big responsibility is getting the money out to the districts,
Right.
getting the policies and implementing the policies that are passed by the General Assembly, passing the rules, all those things, and then administering a team of what before transformation was 400 or so, and now post-transformation about 760. And the governor asked me, after I'd left the Senate, went over to the U of A system office and served in government affairs for a while there. Governor Hutchinson came in and said, hey, I'd like for you to join my team at the department. I have unbelievable, amazing educators that work for me. And so it never bothered me that, that I was not an educator by career, because I knew that, someone had asked me when it was announced that I was going to be getting that job. They said, so who are you taking with you? And I said, what do you mean? Who am I taking with me? He said, well, who's your team going to be?
Right.
Well, I'd worked with Dr. Kimbrell. I'd worked with Mr. Wood. I said, well, what's wrong with the team that's over there right now?
Exactly.
They seem to be a pretty good team, and they were. And so that's kind of the short version of how I wound up in that role.
Right. Well, and I think, too, the piece that you leave out, honestly, Candace and I, believe it or not, student taught together. I mean, I know I look a lot younger than she does. I get that all the time. But what I will say,
I can read their minds.
yeah, and honestly, the thing that you bring to the table, I think that you sell yourself short on from time to time, is the fact that you truly have a passion for education. I say that, and again, I know you got a little nervous when I brought this book out, but it's the Arkansas's most influential leaders of 2021, and for health and education, you happen to be in there. But the reason I brought that in there, and by the way, you can have this copy to take to your mom, because parents are always.
Yeah, she doesn't get it. She doesn't get that publication.
But she'll be proud.
So
I know how that works, right?
Yep.
But, I think the last question where it says, what keeps you motivated? And you talked about the story of Elroy, is that his name?
Elroy Chin,
Yeah.
Mr. Chin.
Right.
Yeah, Mr. Chin was my constituent when I was in the House, and Mr. Chin was an elderly African-American gentleman, and he had retired there from Texas.
Right.
But the story about Mr. Chin was that one day he wanted to learn how to read.
Right.
He had made it through life until his 70s and 80s and did not know how to read. So go back and research his story. He grew up in South Texas. The schools that were available to him were limited at best. And then I've forgotten, he only made it to 6th grade, 7th grade, something like that. And then there was no option for him at that point. He didn't get a chance to go to high school. But even in the limited schooling he had, reading wasn't something that he was taught. He did become successful just through sheer hard work and determination. But in his retirement years, he wanted to learn how to read the Bible. That was his goal.
Right.
To read the Bible before he died.
Right.
And he was, that was right before I got elected to the House. And that's been something that's always, been a motivation for me to say, there should be no children in the state of Arkansas that don't get that chance to learn how to read and get that foundation.
And couldn't agree with you more. That's what I say. It's that passion for education. Every kid deserves that chance. And nothing, when I think about it, I think there have been situations where you may run into a parent or a kid that's, they have that mindset of, well, this is the ceiling for me. And we have to do our dead level best to get that out of the, to provide every opportunity to show them, if not me, then who. That is what we need to be doing for every kid in the state of Arkansas. Despite their circumstances, they deserve that opportunity. And I don't think you give yourself enough credit to say that's what we do on a day-to-day basis. With that said, I'll swing it over to you, Stacy.
Oh, great.
First of all, Texas, he mentions Texas.
Yeah.
You're a Texans native. We won't hold that against you, right?
Not today.
Not today.
Not today. So tell us a little bit about your backstory, education. Was that always on your plate?
No, it actually wasn't. And I feel like I kind of stumbled my way through my career in education, even to the position I'm in today, kind of the way I've stumbled my way into this studio today. So for me, really, and some of you have heard me tell this story before, but, I was the first in my family to go to college, and I went on a soccer scholarship. And I can remember sitting with my academic advisor, who was an athletic advisor, and we had taken, our test, kind of what fields are you going to go into, and it kind of came back, social work, ministry, or teaching. And, you know, my university was like, okay, we don't have ministry here. And social work, there's no money in social work. So let's go teaching. And it's like, I said, okay, let's do it. And so that's kind of what propelled me into the College of Education at the university. But I'm going to tell you, once I started doing my student teaching and getting into classrooms, I think I'd always been a teacher.
Yeah.
Even back in my days going to church and doing Sunday school classes or helping with the younger classes.
Right.
It was just always something I did, but I never really thought about it.
Right.
And then as far as, you know, getting into education and in my classroom, and when you talk about always encouraging students to be more, you know, I
Right.
think we have to do that for adults too.
Oh, absolutely.
And especially for teachers, because sometimes I don't think we ever think about, I don't. I mean, if you would have asked me, would I be a deputy commissioner at the department? If you would have asked me if I would have worked at the Department of Ed, I wouldn't have known that much about it.
Right.
If you'd ever said I was going to be a principal, I would have said,
Yeah,
no
I mean,
way.
like what?
Yeah.
So that part about talking about what's next for us as educators, and
Right.
how do you continue to grow in your profession and what's out there, because it really is about making a difference for kids.
Right,
All right.
it is.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree with you more on that piece of it either. I mean, you know, that difference making piece is something that, you know, and you guys truly have done an excellent job through COVID. I mean, the last two, you know, I shared with you all a little bit earlier before we got in here, you know, and talking to a gentleman from another state that said, you know, it did me great to be able to look him in the eye and tell him this, but he said, you know, he lived in Illinois, but he had to move out of Illinois to get his kid enrolled in April in Indiana. They were going to start school in Indiana. And I mean, it gave me great pride to say, guess what? We hadn't missed a lick this year. We've been going, school's been rolling in Arkansas.
You know, and I'll tell you, one of the main reasons I think school kept going in Arkansas when a lot of people were wanting to shut down is that it's what you talked about people caring about kids.
Right. Oh, yeah.
That's right.
And knowing that in this state and in our communities that the school is the hub
Right.
in a lot of the communities in rural Arkansas, and people weren't willing to shut that down,
Right.
and knew that kids needed us.
And we saw the early indicators of that in the spring of 20.
Sure.
You know, when we didn't come back from spring break.
Right.
I mean, that was a tough call for the governor to make,
Sure.
for us to make. But what we saw happen is because of the hub, just like Stacy's talking about, thinking about hot meals for kids or just meals, period.
Yep.
Arkansas had about 90% of our districts that were serving some
Wow.
type of meal service
Yep.
to their kids. The state or the national average in the other states was about 44%.
Wow.
You know, and that was a lot of work. I mean, they were grab and go meals, or they got their bus routes and they were delivering meals. They were delivering AMI packets. I mean, you name it. They were out there trying to find their kids, keep their kids engaged. Was it limited? Yes, but
You know-
it kept that connection.
When I was a principal, that was my last year's principal, is when the pandemic hit, and it was really tough. But we delivered meals also, and I just made me tear up thinking about it. But the kids, the smiles on their faces, and the parents when we would bring the food, and it was very humbling.
And it's
really
more,
was.
and it's more than about the food. I mean, it's about the interaction.
It is. I mean, just they would give me a hug and just, oh, Miss Bennett, you know, it's just, it was really very humbling.
Yep.
So
And that's when you talk about the impact of COVID now, and you hear a lot about social, emotional issues, behavioral issues, mental health issues that kids have. On the national level, much of that was because they had lost that connection.
right,
And, you know,
right.
Arkansas, again, I think being the fact that we did in person, we made a commitment to in-person learning. If you wanted your kids to be in school,
They could be there.
it was going to be open
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was huge.
Well, and the thing that I noticed is, you know, and I'm sure it was the same way across the state, but especially with our 22 school districts, you know, in the past, I mean, there's always going to be friendly competition, right? But if something happened and one school needed or wanted something, I mean, the other 21 was quick to jump in and say, hey, we've got that. This is how we do it, or we'll come help you, kind of thing. So, and that's kind of carried over. I mean, again, it goes back to everybody wanting to make a difference for kids. So to me, that has been one of the biggest positives, I think, to come out of COVID is less competition and more just understanding the point that, hey, we're in this together, and we're going to do what we can to make these kids, give them every chance that they need to be successful. So that part of it, to me, has been kind of neat to watch. So you can't say there's been a tremendous amount of positive stuff about COVID, I guess, but to me, that has been top of the list, and it's been encouraging, I would say, for sure.
It has. Hey, going back to what you were talking about hiring good people and kind of getting out of the way, Darren is he's a master at that. I mean, isn't he, Stacy?
Yeah,
Because
I would say, like, did he hire you at one point?
yeah, and he hired you,
Yeah,
right?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean,
Good job, Sharon.
Yeah,
So,
good
we,
job.
we have something in common.
That's right, exactly. Hey, our moms didn't raise no fool. You hire good people and get out of the way. That's what I've been taught.
But seriously, and that is so true, and I learned that from him also. So that when you said that, it made me think about it. Plus, I'd get that in there. I think
Well,
Stacy and I we might have some Darren stories.
And you think about this time in education, it's not a time when micromanagement works very well.
No.
No.
I mean, micromanagement doesn't work well generally in any
Right.
time, but right now especially, we have to set our direction.
Sure.
And our direction was last school year was we were going to have in-person learning, and what will it take for the department level to make sure that happens? And,
Right.
So it was a combination of a lot of things. This year it's kind of that transition a bit back, but you have to adjust. We started out last spring preparing for not as much digital learning, and when July came and COVID ramped up again,
Right.
a lot of schools that said, you know what, digital didn't work for us, we're not going to do it next
Right.
year. They came back and said,
Yeah.
you know what, we're going to need to do digital. So what happens? And Stacy, it was her team that did a lot of that work on the digital learning plans.
Right.
Even just setting up how we are going to view those, how we're going to review those in a short period of time. And just a lot of behind the scenes work that people out in the state, they can't realize the
Right.
amount of work, the time that goes into it, the number of people, the number of eyes that are looking at those
Right.
plans to make sure that, a student can sit at home, turn on that computer, and make sure there's a good plan for their learning
Right.
that day.
Right. Well, and that's been the message too from us. I mean, is digital for everybody? Probably not, but there are some people that have, they've benefited greatly from it. And as your point is, I mean, going forward, I mean, there's going to be some kids that are going to be successful in that arena. And that's one of those mindsets I think we're going to have to wrap our minds around, is what works for all kids. And in the past, that sit and get and watching that evolve is something in the 26 years that I've been in it. I learned that early on, even with my own self. I think back when I was in school, probably about the 10th grade, was introduced to a oral communications teacher that, arranged her seats in a circle and did some really neat things. I thought, wow. And as I look back, she was an innovator.
Back at the time, yeah, she was doing it different.
Yeah, at the time. And so, but, as we roll through the world, it's exactly what you said, what's working now. And there's a lot of people that can't or don't, for whatever reason, want to wrap their head around that. But, the other thing is we're moving at such a pace that we have to be careful not to jump on the first thing running. But at the same time, we got to make sure we're meeting the needs of everybody. And that's a difficult thing to do at times.
Yeah,
So,
and I've said, you know, digital learning will never replace good teaching. I mean,
Right.
it's got to
Right.
be. It helps extend good teaching.
Right.
We talk about that a lot at the department, and it's, you know, we learn lessons of where we thought we were in Arkansas. Maybe isn't where we needed to be.
Right.
With respect to digital learning, because this isn't new for us. We've had first law, I think, was back in the 90s.
Right, yeah, when we were going through and trying to update rules just on digital learning,
Right.
I mean, they were going back,
Yeah.
it was like 4 or 5 different sets of rules all combined
Right.
together, and you had legislations in the 90s, early
Yeah.
2000s, all about virtual or digital, and so just trying to line that out
And
was,
because that wasn't all aligned, when COVID hit, it created some challenges.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, thankfully, we were able to waive some rules and
Right.
because of the emergency at the time. But it really made us go back at the department to say, okay, what do we need to update? What do we need to fix? What are the barriers that we need to pull out of the way?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Darren, we've had several conversations with the press conferences, and sitting there going, I wouldn't want to have to make that call. I would not want to have to make
I
that
could
call.
remember where I was. I was in Jacksonville in the parking lot of the Goodwill thrift store, because I frequent thrift stores and look for cool stuff. And I was getting out of the car and
Fun
got a
fact.
call from the governor. And I remember what he said. He said, "Johnny, I think I'm losing this." I said, "What do you mean, Governor?" He said, this is getting out of hand. I think we're probably going to have to call it and not be able to go back until we get a clear picture of what's going on. I said, "Well, Governor, I agree with you." I mean, that was feedback I was getting from superintendents.
Right.
Was that, are we really going to come back after spring break? We all wanted to. We all hoped that, but we didn't. So here's something else, though, that a lot of people just don't realize. Because we had AMI, we had what, Stacy, a year or a school year or
Yeah.
two, maybe, of
Before.
experience from before of alternative methods of instruction. That's what helped Arkansas do
Right.
much more than the other states as far as continuing a learning opportunity. And it was-
And our partnership with PBS.
well, I was
Yes.
going to mention that too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not aware of Arkansas AMI through Arkansas PBS, all the work that's happened. I mean, we've had now 2 years of the public television equivalent of Emmy Awards
Right.
Right.
that they have for the
For the work they did
programming
on
that
that,
they
yeah.
produced.
Mm-hmm.
And also, before COVID, Arkansas PBS was only covering about 75% of the state
Wow.
through their transmitters. And just a side note on that, okay, I grew up in Gurdon, down Red Springs Road, and when they put that tower, that PBS tower down the road from my house, watching the Cowboys on Channel 11 was never the same because it made Channel 11 so snowy we couldn't actually see, we couldn't watch Channel 11. So we went from 3 channels down to 2
Two and a
at
half.
the time. But anyway, that being that aside, we were able to get it up to close to 100% coverage
Wow. That's awesome.
using some of those early COVID funds to help PBS upgrade their generators, their transmitters, and so now West Memphis that didn't have coverage has coverage. Falk in areas in extreme Southwest that didn't have it, they now have it, and so if we're poised that if there's ever any type of disruption like we had then,
Sure.
we'll be able to get some good educational programming out.
Okay. Well, I know you guys got to get out of here, but so moving forward, let's just talk about, moving forward, what's that looking like? And again, COVID, let's just take that off the table. So what's in the works for DESE from this point forward?
That's a great question. And we're going to teach kids how to read. Rise Arkansas is an initiative that as long as I'm commissioner or secretary or whatever title anybody wants to call me, we're concentrating on that. It is not going to be a 3 or 4 year initiative. We're already heading into year 5.
Yeah.
And we have
Time flies.
new just today you
Right.
took us into
Right.
one of your sessions.
Wasn't staged at all.
And it wasn't
No,
at
it
all,
wasn't.
but
No.
you had 3-6 teachers in there, and about a third of them raised their hands as being brand new teachers. We have that has to be successful.
Right.
So, if we don't do anything else, we're going to support the Rise Initiative,
Yeah.
which Dolly's going to come help us celebrate.
Yeah, Dolly Parton's going to be here in May.
That's awesome.
We've got Imagination Library in every county in the state now, so she'll be here to celebrate that. But another big piece moving forward, too, is supporting teachers and students with the behavioral mental health piece.
Right.
That was a conversation pre-pandemic. It's still a conversation. And I'll tell you, it's really about there's not enough tools in the tool belt for teachers and schools. It's like we jump from nothing to suspension.
Right.
And you know, what's the path there, and what are the supports to prevent some of the things that we're seeing in our classrooms?
Right.
We are hearing that from teachers, that they need that support.
Sure.
And they need it from their administrators too. And we
Right.
need administrators to know what do you do?
Right.
And just that full wraparound support on
Sure.
preventative.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, you know, even pre-COVID, that was there, but you know, COVID has really kind of
Oh, it's absolutely.
exacerbated that on lots of levels.
So,
Okay.
So thrift stores, huh? That's
Yeah, you
cool.
can find a lot of really.
So what's the coolest thing you found,
Wow, that's hard.
or one of the coolest things?
You know, I go searching for political and historic memorabilia, and I've found a few Arkansas, you know, political pieces from old campaigns from 30,
That's
40
cool.
years ago.
That's cool.
Rockefeller, maybe governor bumpers, things like that. That, you know, there was one that I found in the picture section, you know, and it was just this picture of Governor Bumper sitting at his desk. And I thought, well, why would anybody want to get rid of that?
Wow.
So yeah, for $1, I ended up buying that, taking it home.
You're not a hoarder, are you?
My wife might say yes.
Okay.
You know, we all have our faults.
Well, yeah, this is the fun part of the show here. So, y'all like me probably spend a lot of time on the road. I know Stacy does. I know you do.
Yeah.
So, favorite places to eat.
Okay, he's the food person.
Okay.
I just follow wherever people tell me to go, but he's
Yeah.
the foodie of the state.
You know, so it depends on what part of the state
Right.
we're headed to. I'll tell you my this is the non-food place.
Okay.
But my favorite place, and I've made the team stop there because usually I'm driving. So my favorite spot, one of my favorite spots in Arkansas, is the Louisiana Purchase Monument Marker State Park,
Right.
down between Brinkley and Helena, West Helena.
Right.
It's like a glimpse into the prehistoric history
Right,
of
right.
the state, because it's like that little patch of ground. It's swampy. You got the all those trees there, and you know, thinking about from that point the growth of
Right.
the United States
Exactly.
took place. I mean,
Right.
that's just pretty cool.
Right.
But Delta Q in Forest City, that's pretty good.
Yep.
That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
I've eaten that,
I enjoy that.
Right before Suzanne McCummon retired, I mean, that's one of the highlights of being a co-op director. We were meeting up there, and everybody said, well, where you want to eat? Suzanne said, I know. She took us up there, and I rode with her, and you talking about a piece of history. She has some, let me tell you. So let's talk, both of you. You both have to answer this one.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Playlists as you drive around. What's on top 3 on your playlist? Top 2, top 3.
I'm really kind of a podcast person. Like I just finished
Yeah.
the Suspects podcast.
Boring.
No, listen.
I know you've got to have some music though.
Oh goodness! So music stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of all over the place. I will say I do like current pop stuff,
Right.
and even some of the kid. Okay, like the whole Harry Styles
Harry
stuff.
Styles. Yes. We've been hearing about Harry Styles
Does
for
she
3
make
weeks
you
now.
listen to Harry
No,
Styles?
No,
I wouldn't do that. I
no.
wouldn't do that.
We
No,
talk
but I
too
do like
much
some
when we're
and I like the
riding
country
together.
stuff.
So
Right.
I'm kind of into podcasts and audiobooks. I'm kind
Okay.
of into that. So I'm
Okay.
boring.
You are a grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
but I have the
so-
cutest baby.
Okay.
going back to your radio days,
Yeah.
Southern Rock,
Right. Yes.
Standard.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's
Yeah.
a fun fact. This guy goes to all these old concerts and
Yeah.
stuff too.
Well,
when
you got to
they're
go
in
before
town.
they die.
That's right. Exactly.
I go to concerts of people
Yeah.
that I didn't go
So
to.
what was your
concerts
last
'cause
concert?
now I
Yeah.
have money.
Yeah. Last concert
been-
was who then?
Yeah.
The last concert I went to was the Commodores.
Yeah,
and that was
the
at
other day.
Forest City.
And then you
Yeah.
had one right before
And
that was
Saturday, this coming up, got Air Supply.
Oh,
That's for my
wow.
wife.
Wow.
Right.
No, that's
Okay, sure. No.
She's an '80s girl, and
Yeah.
they were the big thing. So
You know, that's what I miss about having Beth here. She was my music. I mean, she's older than I am, obviously, but she was a music buff, kind of like me. You ever heard of Teddy Swims? This guy, soulful dude. I mean, y'all got to check him out.
okay,
And more so on YouTube because he does a lot of covers, and that's kind of how he got recognized. You won't be disappointed, I promise. And but yeah, good stuff there.
Yeah, he's always jamming with some music
Yeah,
in the office,
that-
which I like that.
My favorite thing that I did though, and it's going to become a thing because some hated it, some loved it, but I'll get on the all call right in the middle of a session up here, put on a song, you know, and people don't know how to react to that because it goes back to what we said earlier. I mean, people got to relax for just a half a second or something. I did do it right before lunch, but
No,
so,
Well, and we talk about that. We don't do that
Yeah.
very well at the
Right.
department because we go from one thing to
right,
the next.
exactly,
And it's
right.
really hard. You have to be very
Yeah.
deliberate
Yeah.
to pause and celebrate some of the accomplishments. We've
right.
had some really, really awesome accomplishments.
Right. Yeah.
I'm breaking news right here. I just sent the memo to the governor this week. The average teacher salary in Arkansas across the whole state jumped $1,200
That's
from
awesome.
1920 to 2021.
Awesome.
That's before the latest legislation
Right.
went into effect. So,
Wow.
you know, we're seeing
Good.
some pretty
Yeah.
good progress. And,
That is good
and
news,
I don't
yeah.
know how to make a song that I can
Yeah.
play in all the classrooms all over, but
Right. Yeah.
Darren, you want to sing for us or
Yeah,
wrap that
Darren.
out?
Well, hey, that's why I play music. I can't sing, and that's why I was on radio, not TV. I've got a face for radio. So
I got to call Darren out too because you know, I mean, y'all notice how we have our headphones and he has his special ones, and
yeah, he does
and-
have
yeah.
little
And,
fancy
and then I told
equipment.
him, I said, "So are we casual today, or you know, Dawson shirts? Oh yeah. And you wearing jeans? Oh yeah." And I text last night. He said, "Well, I might not wear jeans," and I'm like, "Fine, I'm not wearing jeans."
But he's wearing a puffy vest. So
Okay, but-
that's kind of casual.
Yeah, it's a
it's
semi-casual.
It's way casual.
It's not way casual, but
Okay.
It's a little.
So now we're on that. Who did we spend 30 minutes on with camera shots to hide their double chin?
That's important, isn't it, Stacy?
Can you believe that? I
That's
thought.
just too much. That's too much information.
Hey,
Commissioner, I did tell you that I would wave at you when it was time to finish it, and we may
Huh?
be getting
Am I
there.
getting the high sign?
I told her she could grow a beard just like I do.
Stop.
That's what we do.
Hey, don't y'all think that he would make a great Santa for Christmas?
Hey, I'm up
Dress
for any
up.
kind of side hustle, more times than not, right?
Yeah, I think you could pull it off though.
Okay.
Totally.
He'd be a younger Chris Kringle.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's lead with this one. Best piece of advice that you ever got. It doesn't have to be education or anything. Let's just talk best piece.
Yeah, that's a question I get in these types of publications,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I always answer it differently because there's been so much
Mm-hmm.
good advice. But don't be afraid to fail.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
because failure doesn't mean it doesn't mean you're like you fumble the ball, you don't get kicked off the team, right?
Right.
You
Right.
you might mess up, but
Right.
you acknowledge it, you fix it, and you go on and
Right.
figure out what you learned from it.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
I really think it's about the concept of like there's no job that's too small and there's no job that's not yours.
Right.
And roll your sleeves up and just do it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're
Like
right,
unloading computer boxes
that's
out
right.
of
That's
out of the
right.
van.
If you
Right.
need somebody else to show up and take care of
Yeah.
the problem, then you're part of the problem.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm reminded, you said that, I remember in this, I think it was this past summer when we got the Misters, Jerry Clark. She comes down here dressed to the nines and had on slacks and heels, and she's sweating like a lineman at halftime. And I said, "Girl, what are you doing? Let us help." "Oh, I got this." She was slinging those things in her car, and I thought, that's what makes Jerry Jerry. She's a worker. But as far as advice, I'm kind of like you two. As you roll through life, you keep on getting it. And I read this piece the other day, and I thought that's so true. It said, "It's not the water around you that sinks the boat; it's the water that you let in that sinks the boat." And I thought, there's a lot of truth in that one as well, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That's right.
I mean, just the concept that we were talking about, even at lunch and even on the way down here, just some common sense of compassion,
Oh yeah,
Real compassion.
people listening to each other, and just doing the right thing, being kind.
yeah. We,
Yep.
when we were at Fountain Lake together, I guess it may have been your first year when we did One Word, I think, wasn't it? And we've continued to talk about that book. I don't know if you ever read it, but you select that one word for the year. And so we continue to do that each year and try to build on that word each year. And pretty much every chance we get out and get to talk about it, I mean, I mean, that's the one book that I like to refer to everybody because it's a simple read. Number one, doesn't take a lot of time, but number two, one word is truly impactful. If you can, no matter how good, bad, or indifferent your day's going, and you can go back to that word for self-reflection, it's a pretty neat concept.
Yeah.
John Gordon,
Yeah, it's really good.
and so it's, I mean, gosh, it's,
Yeah, did you hear Stacy? Be kind.
yeah, well, that's 2 words. That's how it doesn't apply here. So.
Hey, how much time do we have left?
Well, not a
Oh,
lot.
yeah,
Not a
we-
lot?
yeah,
9
we're about
minutes.
done.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
you asked about what's coming next.
Right, right.
I know one of the things, and Dr. Pfeffer, would probably be great to have her on podcast too sometime to talk about this, and that's the teacher residency
Right.
proposal that we're pushing out. She's worked really hard. A number of the team. I mean, it's really been a cross section partnership with higher ed, career technical education, all of these departments that are divisions that used to be standalone departments. So one, talking about transformation, it's something that may not have happened
Right.
pre-transformation. But now, it's going to, I believe it could be a model for other states
Right.
for how we fill the teacher pipeline.
Sure.
And don't have time to get into all the details, but if you're in education and you want to see something that has great potential and is also cost effective for
Right.
up and coming students, it's absolutely something you need to get information about.
Yeah. And we're truly excited about that with 2 universities, within spitting distance, as we like to see in the country, right down the road, because we've already had lots of folks inquire about that. So it is truly going to be exciting, and we do appreciate the work that she's put in on that. Very appreciative of you 2 taking the time out of your busy
Definitely.
schedules. You guys have, I mean, we joke about it a lot, but we do appreciate everything that you've done during the pandemic. I know it hadn't been easy. But you guys have stepped up in a big way, from the PPE piece to just having to make those tough decisions.
Think about how long ago that seems now.
Oh, I know.
I
It
know.
We
does.
were trying to scramble around trying to get masks, trying
Yeah.
to get gloves,
Oh,
trying to get
absolutely.
sanitizer.
Yeah.
It seems like it was forever ago.
Right. But I mean, through it all, you guys have remained, pretty steady, pretty constant, and that was so important, I think, from the piece for educators, because I go back to some of these states, and gosh, and just now hearing some of the things that they're doing, I'm thinking, man, you guys are so 2000 and late. Well, I mean, we didn't.
That is so
You know?
true. So even like just in our state plans and stuff, when we were addressing things,
Yeah.
like we were struggling at times because we're like, we did this last year.
Yeah.
What are they trying to get from us right now? What are they trying to
Yeah.
ask us for? I think the real thing is we can't go backwards. I mean, we just got to keep moving forward and push it on, because
I know.
you're right.
Sometimes I'm watching the news. It's almost like we're watching the movie Groundhog Day. I'm like,
It's like we've been there.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
Well, you guys have been great, and we certainly do
appreciate you,
appreciate you
Yeah,
guys.
thank you, Darren.
And
Candace.
we're here
I've
for you.
enjoyed
yeah.
it. It's been
Yeah.
awesome.
So hopefully when y'all come back in, maybe Candace will have ear surgery and her ears will be small enough
Hey.
to wear in-ear headphones. I don't know.
Candace,
Be
listen, I promise
fine.
next time
Yeah.
I'll come ready and prepared.
Oh yeah, because
For
you
Darren.
got some. We've got some blackmail on Darren probably. I said you better.
I
Called
don't know.
mutually assured destruction, right?
That's
Uh,
right.
Hey.
Exactly. That's right. That's
Appreciate
right.
it, guys. Thanks.
You bet. So again, we appreciate everybody listening out there, and again, we'll be coming up. We're hoping next time we're going to do a little Battle of the Ravine. That's big time down here. You know that being
it
what's
is.
the word?
Gerdonian.
Gerdonian.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
learned a new word today. All right.
Gerdonian. I
Thank y'all
love it.
very much, and we'll see y'all next time. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks.